Hey, Cropper. So I actually did record a longer response video to you a few nights ago, but it's still processing. I have a feeling it's never going to show up, which is unfortunate. It was about 13 minutes long, and I think covered a lot of territory that may have been helpful for you or for others. But I want to go over the argument that I made against the idea that mathematics can be derived from the empirical world. I wouldn't want to go so far as to say that mathematics uh, or number has nothing to do with the empirical world, because obviously the big surprise is that mathematics is um, perhaps the most accurate form of description that we can give of these hidden patterns operative in the natural world, in the world that we sense. Now, of course, there may be more to nature than we can sense, and I think this is why mathematics is so helpful to empirical science. Um, we can't immediately perceive these patterns that mathematics allows us to uncover. Um, but I think my point is that through our sensory experience, we don't actually experience number. That number is something applied to our sensory experience by the mind, let's say, or by the intellect, not something derived from sensory experience. And a good example, I'll use two objects again, and these are similar remotes. They're not identical. I used two different objects, a glass and uh, a book, in my last video, just to try to exemplify the way in which each one was an identity all its own, different from the other, in other words, and yet I was able to group them as two of the same, because two-ness is an idea or a form that can be applied to any set of two very different sensed objects, sensory objects. Um, but in the case of one of these remotes, let's just stick with one. It has many buttons, right? So what allows me to distinguish this whole object as one? Well, there's an intellectual function, um, a mental function that allows me to group this for the time being as one thing, where I could very easily group it as many things if I looked at its individual buttons. So every thing is simultaneously many things, and depending on its relevance to my intellectual purposes in any given instance, I will choose whether to describe it as one or many. But whether it's one or many is not something found in this sensory object itself. I have to discriminate um, a particular pattern in this sensory object using my mind in order to discover its numerical realities, its potential uh, as a thing to be counted, or as many things to be counted. Um, so hopefully that clarifies a little bit where I was going.